Kia ora, thank you. Tēnā tātou he pai te tūtaki ki a koutou I te rā nei. E huri ahau o Ngāti Hine, ko Sarafina Tipene tōku ingoa. Just a bit of more background about me. So last year I started to work full-time, so I was looking for some more kind of at-home self-help ways to learn reo, and I came across a whole wealth of resources from books, online courses, online textbooks, podcasts, and I decided to start kind of documenting or sharing whatever I learnt over the weeks or the fortnights in the form of little like visually engaging infographics that just summarized really simply whatever I'd learnt. I'll show you a couple examples in a minute so you know what I'm talking about. But as what's already been mentioned, over I think 4 or 5 months, I grew a following of over 11,000 followers. So this presentation is pretty much just going to be the key takeaways from that experience and how I think we can take advantage of growing platforms like Instagram and their engagement tools to better serve kaupapa Māori and revitalise reo Māori. So I'm just going to share my screen now so that you can see my presentation and a few examples that I've put together. So this is pretty much the page. This is what it looks like when you go onto the profile. But I just wanted to start off with a couple barriers. So a wee while ago, I surveyed my followers and pretty much just asked them, what are the key barriers keeping you from either learning reo or speaking it on a regular basis? And I got 2 resounding responses. One was around resourcing, so not having enough time, you know, outside of mahi, kids, school, to just sit down and learn reo, but also around available materials, so not having enough, you know, resources or maybe classes or maybe enough money to pay for fees if they take a class that requires fees. And the other barrier was around kind of whakamā or fear, you know, fear of trying and making a mistake, maybe embarrassing yourself. And the third barrier wasn't talked about as much, but it was something that I did notice, especially when I read the 2018 report that Stats NZ did on reo Māori, where they surveyed a bunch of rangatahi Māori and asked them how important learning reo was to them on a daily basis. And I think it was just over 30% said that it wasn't something that was super important to them, and only I think around 10% said that it was very important to them. So if we're thinking about these barriers and trying to find a way to, you know, create resources that are easily accessible and also re-engaging rangatahi, then social media is actually a really good solution to that, because 1, it's easily accessible. Anyone with an internet connection can, you know, access Instagram. But also 2, that's where all the rangatahi are at the moment. There was a study that showed that on average, Gen Z spends about 4 hours and 15 minutes on their phone. 3 of those hours that they spend on social media platforms. So that's how young people are socializing these days. That's how they're, you know, engaging and interacting with one another. So we should be trying to, you know, think of ways to have them engage on those platforms, but in reo Māori. And because at the moment, a lot of the online digital creators are from overseas, so they make content that's, you know, in reo Pākehā and not super relevant to New Zealand. So that was kind of the idea behind the page, was trying to decolonize the social media space and offer up more reo Māori options when, you know, rangatahi are engaging with one another. Because people are starting to move away from, you know, radio and TV and more to kind of online and social media apps. So I'm just going to pull up some examples of what I'm talking about. So if you're on Instagram, you know that people engage with each other by taking photos and sharing them. And what you can do is add filters to those photos. So what they do is they can alter the color, add patterns, but most importantly, they can add text, they can add language. And as I said before, most of the filters are in Reo Pākehā, so people are engaging in Reo Pākehā. So what I did is I created a whole bunch of filters which were in Māori. So if you took a photo, it would say what the day was in Māori, or the month was in Māori, or it would say a little phrase like morena, or maybe a kiwaha. Or if you took a video with one of my filters, it would start playing a quiz in Reo Māori and ask you, okay, what's this word in Māori, or how do you say this in Māori? And they did really well. They were super popular. I think across all my filters, they got about just over 1 million engagements. So people were loving them. You know, people were taking photos with their friends and their families, doing the quiz with their kids, and then sharing them with all the connections. And it was actually a really good way to kind of promote the language as well, because since, you know, Instagram is such a massive platform, it really increases the exposure with everyone taking photos with Reo Māori and sharing them. And it became a really cool way to just normalize using the language in your everyday life and integrating it into your kind of the way you socialize online. On the left here is stickers. So they're a similar engagement feature, like just adding text to photos. But in the middle here, you can see examples of my filters. So with the day and with a little phrase there. The most important function of Instagram obviously is the post. So where you create either images or infographics that you add to your page and share with all your followers. So these are a bunch of examples of posts that I created, and what I try to do is I try to make them as visual as possible. So I try to have as few words as possible and try to design them so people can just look at them and understand the concept or understand the meaning of a word or the function of a word. And ones that did really well were these pronoun ones down here. So what I did is just made a whole bunch of posts comparing like koutou to korua to tātou, so people can very clearly see the differences. Because I know when you're first learning, it can be really confusing. And this helped because it like visually showed what it looked like from the speaker's perspective and the listener's perspective. A few more examples is the timeline I did down here. So I did literally a timeline of all the different tenses, so people could just flick through and look at from past tense to future tense. Up here I did the difference between nei, na, and a. So yeah, this was just a really, you know, simple, fun way for people to just learn a bit of Reo and be exposed to a bit of Reo just throughout their day. What's cool about these is they have additional features as well. So down here is the save tab. So you can save the post, and then maybe if you have 20 minutes on a bus ride, you can just go onto your profile and open up that folder, and all your saved posts will be in there. So it really helps for revision because it's just right there on your phone. You can quickly flick through it. It's a really good way to just quickly recall those lessons. And we all know revision is half the battle when it comes to learning a language. Another really cool feature about these is the share button down here. Again, you can just share it with all your friends and family, increase the exposure of the language, increase normalization of the language. If we go on to the next slide, these are the reels. So these are like short couple second videos where I basically just said Māori words so people could hear the pronunciation. But you know, you could also make little skits where you teach people how to say certain words or certain phrases. Other engagement tools were the stories. So these are 24-hour posts that last on your page. And these are a really good way to just do, you know, like a kupu a day. And again, these can all be saved into a highlight reel. So you can again just go back and revisit all the past kupu and revise over each one. So those were a couple ways that, you know, engagement features on social media platforms helped re-engage rangatahi and became more accessible resources. But another way that they help kind of address some of those barriers I mentioned before around being whakamā and being scared to kind of give it a go was a question feature that you can do on your story. So I would ask my audience every now and again just a bunch of questions. What motivated you to learn Reo Māori? Where do you want to be in a couple of years? What some positive experiences you had around learning Reo? What some negative experiences? And it kind of created like online wānanga where this is only like 10% of the responses I received. I received thousands and thousands of responses to those questions, and I was able to share them with everyone else. So created a little bit of like an online community where people were sharing, you know, why Reo was important to them, sharing their experiences, and were able to kind of support one another through the Reo journey. So it doesn't just feel like it's you on your own, making mistakes on your own. So those were kind of the key takeaways from my experience. And, you know, with social media, it's going to continuously evolve and get even more accessible. And it's just a really good kind of supplementary tool to any Reo course you're taking or revisionary tool. And we could, you know, continue to build on that and use other platforms like Zoom, and maybe have, you know, a weekly Zoom hui where we teach Reo, or start using other platforms like TikTok, and just get creative and think about how we can, you know, move our rangatahi over from only speaking in Reo Pākehā on these social media platforms into Reo Māori. There obviously are a couple limitations of the page. One being that I don't have an advanced understanding of Reo, so sometimes I'm not entirely sure what to kind of be teaching or sharing next. But if a page like this was to be run by, you know, a fluent speaker or, you know, organization that taught Reo, I think it would be, you know, really helpful resource. So yeah, and obviously these sorts of things are important, reconnecting with the language, because that's how you have access into the culture, that's how you have access into those kind of communities, and really start to understand, you know, the culture and those really old kind of concepts and meanings of the language. So that's pretty much my presentation. I think I'll open the floor to any pārtai, either in person or over the chat, if you have any.
Ka pai, kia ora, Sarafina, crikey. I think there's a few people on here that are just about older than me, but it sounds like you need to kind of marry up with one of us, and we'll provide the Reo and you provide the technology.
Yeah.
So maybe we've got a couple of questions there around the technology stuff, and about what kind of app do you use, or apps do you use for creating the visuals? Fiona was asking a question about when you're creating a visual, such as what you've shown us, can you use other files from other apps like Canva or Google Drawings, or how do you create your visuals and things like that?
Yeah, so I create all of them on Canva. So Canva is really good because it pretty much has all the designs. You just have to pull them all together and then, you know, make the illustration. But I have friends as well who literally draw all their illustrations themselves. So with the filters and the stickers, you can, you know, get a digital pad and then just make them on, you know, what's it called, Photoshop. So
Right.
yeah, there's a whole range of different apps that you could use, but I use Canva.
Yeah, gosh. And so how often, another question from Voda, how regularly do you post to keep it active? What's too much? Or, you know, have you found a good consistent kind of regularity, or what's your tip, I guess, on that?
So people who have been doing this for a long time say to post as much as possible. Like that's how you get the most engagement, is to post a lot. I try to not do that though. I think if you overdo it, it can kind of bombard people. So I try to keep it to around a week or a fortnight with posts, and then maybe do a story each day. I haven't been posting recently, just like what I mentioned before. I don't have an advanced understanding of Reo, so I'm kind of running out of things to share, but I'm looking to sign up to a full immersion course next year, so hopefully I can get back to posting.
Ka pai. And Rawiri would like you to go to Kaumatua Net
I will.
and help
I
them
will.
along. We'll see you all there. We'll all see you there. Me te mihi anō mere ana ki a koe, our rangatahi need Māori influences like you, Sarafina. Keep up the mahi. Well done. Yeah. Anybody else want you? How do we get your filter? There you go. How do we get your filters?
So if you go on to, if you're on Instagram and you add in my app, so you search More Māori, on the profile there will be, oh wait, I can show you here.
Write this down, e kare mā.
So pretty much on the profile, you'll see it down here. It's not in this photo, but between these two icons here, there will be the filters, and you just click them and then it'll open up all the different filters for you.
And you can download them or save them to your own
Yeah,
device
so
or something?
once they open up, if you just click the one you want to use, that will load it. So you won't have to save it.
How pai.